The date is Tuesday, September 14. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. The cost of vegetables and chicken meat are set to rise in the coming months, due in part to the impact of weather conditions that have affected the island over the last 2 months and global volatility in grain prices. Agriculture and Fisheries Minister Floyd Green has reportedly met with key stakeholders, including poultry producers, to devise strategies to lessen price increases. Marlon Samuels has more in this report.
COVID-19 has dealt a severe blow to Jamaica's public health system. It is also taking jobs at the social and economic life of the island. Schools and restaurants have had to close. There are limitations on public gatherings and travel. The pandemic is also affecting the island's food supply. Vegetables and chicken meat are important staples of Jamaica's food security. Jamaica was recently impacted by 2 tropical storms, and the heavy rains from these systems have negatively affected vegetable production. There is also growing concern among stakeholders of the fluctuating cost of critical farm inputs, including day-old chickens, the market price for chicken meat and feed. Corn and soybean prices have also been increasing steadily over the last year. The Agriculture and Fisheries Ministry is providing government oversight and coordinating efforts between research institutions and poultry farmers in a bid to reduce production costs. Portfolio Minister Floyd Green reportedly met with poultry providers to discuss cost containment measures along with substitutes for high-priced grain. He reportedly asked poultry processors to ramp up the production of baby chicks to meet market demand. During his sectoral debate presentation in the House of Representatives on May 12, 2021, the minister announced cash incentives for farmers. This is in an effort to limit financial loss across the sector. The incentives covered small ruminants as well as crop and vegetable farmers. Production incentives include the distribution of fertilizer, seeds, chemicals, and personal protective equipment have also been given to farmers. In the medium and long term, the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries is trying to put in place the resources necessary to ensure optimal livestock and agricultural production. This is in a bid to keep the prices of vegetables and chicken meat affordable for all. For the news on PBCJ, I am Marlon Samuels.
The National Family Planning Board, NFPB, is appealing to Jamaicans to facilitate its team when they come to conduct the 2021 Reproductive Health Survey. Principal Director of the National Family Planning Board, Lovett Byfield, says information from the survey will be used to develop programs that will impact family health and population growth. She shared details with JIS think tank. Melvin Pennant tells us more.
The government began conducting the periodic survey in the 1970s. Principal Director of the National Family Planning Board, Lovett Byfield, says the research looks at the factors that impact population size and growth.
The information which will be gleaned from this survey will be used in determining program implementation and other vital issues specific to how we deal with the issues relating to reproductive health. And by reproductive health, we are not just referring to pregnancies, we're also referring to sexually transmitted infections, mortality rates, and some of those other issues. To be very specific, it provides some evidence based on SRH, or sexual and reproductive health data, that will accurately update the country on the status of total fertility, contraceptive use, the knowledge, attitude, and practice of the population towards the critical issues of family planning and sexual reproductive health. We're also looking a little at maternal and child care, infant and child mortality, and to a lesser extent, sexually transmitted infections and HIV/AIDS. This is not intended to be a prevalence survey for HIV/STIs. And we are also, for this year, including the very critical issue of gender-based violence.
She says the matter of population replacement level is being investigated in the survey as well.
there are concerns that Jamaica is joining other nations in terms of the actual, we have reached the replacement level of 2.1, and that has implications for what we promote as it relates to population growth, what would be our messages. You would all recall that some time ago we were speaking to the fact that persons should limit the number of children, but if you in fact have reached your replacement level, we need to be looking at what would we be doing in this regard, and who would we be targeting or sending these specific messages to.
Ms. Byfield says the key indicators will give information that will be used to create programs aimed at fulfilling global sustainable development goals.
We have to report, based on our international obligations, we have to report on these indicators. So we have to ensure that they are in line with what has been requested of the nation and what we have signed on to through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, so that we keep our measures constant.
The survey is being conducted by the Statistical Institute of Jamaica, Statin, on behalf of the NFPB. Ms. Byfield explains that the interviewers are trained and will have identification ID card. She is encouraging Jamaicans to cooperate with the interviewers. Melvin Pennant, PBCJ News.
Students are being reminded that the deadline to apply for Student Loan Bureau's Jumpstart Scholarship is September 30, 2021. SLB Jumpstart is designed to assist financially challenged students leaving secondary school who have been accepted into a tertiary institution. Students can get up to $300,000 to assist with their tuition. To qualify for the scholarship, applicants must be between the ages of 17 and 21, must have completed secondary level education, and are about to enter an approved tertiary institution. Interested persons can retrieve the application form and additional information on the SLB website at slbja.com. Jamaicans are set to benefit from a U.S. $5.2 million donation from the United States Agency for International Development, USAID. The funds will bolster the government's vaccination program. The government aims to have 65% of the population vaccinated by March 2022. More than 600,000 Jamaicans have taken the jab so far. The U.S. Embassy says more than $10 million have been disbursed to the government since the start of the pandemic in support of its response. According to the release, the support includes, to date, 208,260 Pfizer vaccine doses, a donation of a field hospital, and medical supplies supporting the island's health, education, and security sectors. The COVID-19 pandemic is testing the world's health apparatus. Here in Jamaica, an already burdened sector has been placed under even more pressure, leading to overworked frontline workers and overcrowded facilities. However, all is not lost. The island's Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Jacqueline Pbcj says her team has been working to increase and improve hospital capacity to manage the demands. Chief Medical Officer in the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Dr. Jacqueline Pbcj says the ministry continues to review its strategic response to the pandemic.
Our 5 strategic areas in terms of response have been planning and coordination, situation monitoring and assessment, prevention and containment, health system response, and communication. And we review these strategic areas and prepare along these lines to improve the actions for any surge that we're going into or any activities.
Frontline workers have been under pressure with the number of patients being hospitalized due to the coronavirus. Mrs. Pbcj says work is being done to increase their numbers.
We had new graduates where 261 registered nurses were expected to graduate, and up to the 24th of August, we would have employed 68 of these, with 102 more left to be that have been contacted and are ready to be employed. In addition, we would have taken up our midwives that would have graduated, or enrolled assistant nurses and our patient care attendants, and we also had 20 critical care nurses that graduated from the program and would have been redeployed back to their areas of work.
She says 108 nurses have been employed. Some of whom are already on staff are being given additional training. 102 are awaiting employment.
We have also increased our training of our registered nurses in the basics of critical care nursing to enable them to assist in the management of critical care patients. In addition, we have 24 nurses that are supposed to come in the Cuba program, and these are supposed to come by the end of September.
She says 2 additional field hospitals are being erected, one in Mapen Clarendon and the other in Savannah Lamar in Westmoreland. The CMO says hospitals have also been working to create additional bed spaces to deal with the surge in new cases.
Now, in addition to that, we would have identified some new spaces in some hospitals where we would have been able to put in additional beds. And this was done in several of our hospitals. But moving on as the numbers increase, then we recognized we had to convert existing wards by combining wards. And several hospitals did this by combining same-sex wards, putting female patients on one ward, reducing the number of patients and therefore freeing up wards to accommodate COVID patients. As the numbers increased further, then we would have looked at reducing patient load. And when we went up to the 1,000, this is what we did in terms of our hospitals reverting to emergencies only. What this would mean is that outside of the 716 COVID beds, we would now start to use some of those 5,000 beds for the management of COVID.
Dr. Bessessa McKenzie says an audit has been done in all of the ICU, HDU facilities and necessary equipment procured.
In May, we had 12 ICU beds and 19 HDU beds that were for COVID, and we would have had 70 ventilators. Actually, that should be corrected to 108 ventilators. In terms of our third surge plan, what we recognized is that certainly once a patient gets onto a ventilator, the prognosis ends up being poorer. And so we would have moved to increase the number of high-flow nasal oxygen machines that we had in country, and therefore increased our capacity to decrease the use of ventilators. We would also have done the sourcing of additional ventilators. We have an additional 23 that was brought in through an arrangement with the Saudi government. We have now completed training where that is concerned, and so therefore the 108 ventilators that we have in country, we have an additional 20-odd of those now ready to deploy as needed. So we would have also taken steps to ensure that all our HDU and ICU spaces were functional and at optimal capacity. And this included some changes that we needed to make at National Chest Hospital, putting in some additional works at Spanish Town Hospital to be able to accommodate critically ill patients, the fixing of the air conditioning at the Victoria Jubilee Hospital, and our efforts to get an additional space at the Kingston Public Hospital prepared to manage these patients.
The CMO says agreements have also been signed to ensure that oxygen is available at all hospitals. Trust the facts, get the vax. That's the theme for the major organized crime and anti-corruption agency's new social media campaign. In a news release, MOCA said the campaign is aimed at encouraging Jamaicans to get vaccinated, especially now that at least 3 of the approved vaccines are available on the island. MOCA says the campaign, which was launched on Friday, September 3, has already reached over 45,000 people on Facebook alone. September is observed as Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. To drive information, the Health and Wellness Ministry has embarked on a public education program. The program comprises activities that are aimed at changing the negative attitude of Jamaican men towards prostate cancer screening. Prostate cancer is reportedly the most common cancer in Jamaica, as well as the leading cause of cancer-related deaths. One report suggested that Jamaica has the highest incidence rate of prostate cancer in the world, with an age standardized rate of 304 per 100,000 per year. The ministry is encouraging men over 40 to get screened. We now join Gabriel Thompson at the business desk for this quick report on the latest shifts in some of the local and overseas markets.
In Monday's trading session, the JSE combined index advanced by 525 points to close at over 411,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 88 stocks, of which 37 advanced, 35 declined, and 16 traded firm. The junior market index advanced by 25 points to close at over 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for Access Financial Services Limited, Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited, and Caribbean Cement Company Limited. Stocks declined for 1834 Investments Limited, Barita Investments Limited, and Berger Paints Jamaica Limited. Trading firm were 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited, and Cargo Handlers Limited. Lumber Depot Limited was the volume leader with over 4.7 million units, followed by NCB Financial Group Limited with over 4.4 million units and Trans-Jamaican Highway Limited with over 3.5 million units. In foreign exchange trading for Monday, September 13, the US dollar sold for an average $150.07. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $119.91. The pound sterling traded for $209.02, and the euro sold for an average $179.90. In market data for oil, prices extended gains on Tuesday, hovering near a 6-week high on signs another storm could affect output in Texas this week, even as the U.S. industry struggles to return production after Hurricane Ida wreaked havoc on the Gulf Coast. Brent crude futures rose 15 cents to $73.66 a barrel, having gained 0.8% the previous day. West Texas Intermediate crude climbed 23 cents to $70.68 a barrel after rising 1.1% on Monday. Both benchmarks were hovering near their highest since early August hit the previous day. And on that note, we close this Tuesday edition of the Business Report Inside the News on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson. Pleasant viewing.
Here are some of the stories making headlines across the region. In Trinidad and Tobago, 2 companies have signed a memorandum of understanding towards the first step in capturing methane gas from landfills and using that to power vehicles. One executive believes this intended project will not be a difficult one to capture landfill emissions, given that the Twin Island nation has a very high level of waste being produced per capita.
The outcome of this project creates for us the possibility to capture the landfill gas, clean it up and treat it so it meets the specifications for vehicular use, and then use that gas to fuel vehicles.
It's not yet solid plans, but the first step has been made with the signing of an MOU for this country to harness the high level of landfill emissions. A feasibility study will be conducted to see how plans could move ahead, but if done, Public Utilities Minister Marvin Gonzalez estimates that a high percentage of emissions could be captured.
It is estimated that Landfill Gas Energy project will capture roughly 60 to 90% of the methane emitted from the landfill. This methane can be used as a valuable economic and clean energy resource.
Meanwhile, the NGC CNG President Curtis Mohammed says most developed countries in the world are already capturing emissions to be used for mobility, and as such he believes it's time for this country to catch up.
And it's pretty standard to see methane being collected and being used for either energy or for mobility. In our particular case, we expect that one of the major uses for it, because it'll probably yield the best returns, and we'll study that, is going to be for even adding into the CNG program, where there's renewable natural gas.
Energy Minister Stuart Young says following the signing of the MOU, a feasibility study will be conducted and urged both parties to move swiftly towards moving the process along. In addition to helping reduce carbon emissions in this country, he believes it will help create commercial opportunities in the energy industry. Sunolala, TTT News.
In Antigua and Barbuda, the government is working to create a toll-free hotline for people needing mental health support. It comes as 3 families mourn loved ones believed to have taken their own lives. The Department of Family and Social Services is hoping the hotline will be up by the end of the week. Jamie J. Roche reports.
Director of Family and Social Services Fiona Charles Richards invites people facing mental health issues to reach out to her department.
It seems dark now. It may even have been for a while, but there is hope. Things do get better, but that only starts out with you reaching out to somebody who is able to help you. And that person who is able to help you is most often a counselor, and we want to be able to help you in terms of reaching out to us. You are not alone on this journey. You're not going to go through these challenges alone, and so come to us so that we can give you the tools that you will need or the assistance that you would need to have tomorrow be a better day.
The department is working to set up a toll-free hotline this week so people can get the support they need.
I'm extending to my nation persons who may have mental health background in terms of volunteering their service in manning some of those hotlines when it becomes available.
The division is also appealing for the local telephone company's support. In the meantime, you can call the Family and Social Services Counseling Department at 562-5668 or 562-5669 between 8:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. for help. Meanwhile, the director says people should pay attention if their loved ones exhibit unusual behavior.
Behaviors where they may have become extremely withdrawn. Most of the times, in some instances, they may start to say goodbye. They may start giving away some of their stuff, or things that they may have been interested in, they may not be interested in at all.
She says you should take comments about self-harm seriously and provide support by reaching out to a mental health professional.
How do you bridge that conversation? You know, I recognize that you're going through some struggles, and I want to take you to somebody today that I think can help you. Those are some ways of bridging the conversation and normalizing the conversation in terms of having help or talking to a therapist.
Remember, if you need support, you can call the Family and Social Services Counseling Department at 562-5668 or 562-5669. Jamie J. Roche, ABS News.
In St. Lucia, Export St. Lucia on Monday sought to address concerns surrounding the island's participation in the Expo Dubai trade show and reports of allotted spending of 1.5 million EC dollars. More from HTS News Force.
We noticed that there is quite a bit of concerns raised by the members of the public about St. Lucia's participation in Expo Dubai.
Heated public discussion has erupted over St. Lucia's EC $1.5 million participation in the upcoming Dubai Expo. CEO of Export St. Lucia, Sunita Daniel, hosted a press conference on Monday, September 13th, to address the issues surrounding the trade show.
The cost that the government of St. Lucia will be paying towards Expo Dubai is capped at $1.5 million, US dollars $537,485. That is the cap. That does not mean that we will be spending all of that money. However, it does mean we will not be going beyond that figure. The cost of hosting an expo like this or participating in an expo like this is normally a lot more expensive. And St. Lucia is one of the countries that's called an assisted country. So the UAE, and this expo is taking place in Dubai, the UAE is covering quite a bit of our cost.
Daniel outlined what the $1.5 million is expected to cover for the auspicious trip.
That is expected to cover the design and construction of St. Lucia's pavilion. We need to put up a physical exhibition in our pavilion. Dubai has constructed a building, the Dubai, a whole space where St. Lucia is given our own building to have exhibit what we want to. It It is costly for us to have put up a good exhibition. If you would go on the site, Expo Dubai 2020, you will see that countries like Jamaica, St. Kitts, Grenada have already put up quite impressive designs in their own pavilion.
The funding will also cover promotional material like videos, photography, and brochures. The trip is being financed with allocations from the Citizenship Investment Fund Program, CIP, and was approved way back in 2019. The size of the delegation is also a source of contention in some circles.
People are talking about travel for ministerial delegates. Dubai is covering travel for ministerial delegates. There is quite a bit of diplomatic relations that must take place, and Dubai will be covering the cost for if any ministers need to travel or any high-level official needs to travel. Dubai will be covering the cost of accommodation and travel, meals. None of the $1.5 million that have been allocated will be for ministerial participation.
Daniel says exposure from the Expo will afford St. Lucia the opportunity to make a marketing and promotional pitch to new clientele in a potentially lucrative market in which the island to date has been unable to make a major breakthrough. Solange Alfred, HCS News Force.
In sports, we look to athletics. Sprint superstar Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce, the third fastest woman of all time, will cap off her brilliant 2021 season today when she faces a starter's gun in the women's 100 meters in Switzerland as part of the World Athletics Continental Tour Silver Series meeting. Fraser-Pryce is one of 2 Jamaicans in the race and one of 9 who will be participating in the meet. Jamaica's Olympic relay gold medalist Natasha Morrison and Trinidad's Michelle Lee are also down to compete in the race. Natoya Gould, the Olympic Games 800-meter finalist, will also take the track today. And that's all we have for you today. Join us same time, same place tomorrow for more news right here on PBCJ, the People's Station.